Order please, this regular meeting of the Joshua Basin Water District Board of Directors for January 17, 2024 is now in session at 5:30 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is up here. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Termination of a quorum. General Manager Johnson, a roll call, please.
President Clowen,
Present.
Vice President Doolittle. Here. Director Fick.
Here.
Director Charlesburg. Here. Director Short.
Here. Thank you very much. We have a quorum. All directors are present. There is no remote participation today. Approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
I make a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
A second, please.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carried. Public comment. This designated time is for members of the public to provide comments on any district-related matter, whether appearing on the agenda or not. Under provisions of the Brown Act, the board is prohibited from taking action on items not listed on the agenda. At the discretion of the board president, however, comments on a particular agendized item may be deferred until that item is heard. Do we have a public comment? Hearing none, seeing none. General Manager Johnson, is there written electronic or voicemail comment?
My knowledge.
Thank you very much. Public comment time is now closed. Item number five, consent calendar. Consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial, to be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. If a board member would like an item handled separately, it will be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. The items on the consent calendar are as follows. The draft meeting minutes, that's the board meeting for December 20. And the check register, November 23. It's number B. Does anyone have an item from the consent calendar for discussion?
Wow.
You attended finance, as I recall. So
Yeah, both committee meetings.
is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. All in favor of, or do we have a motion? No, we had a motion. All in favor of approving the consent calendar? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 6, we skip. Presentations, number 7. Informational purposes only. No action will be taken. Item A is the consumer report presentation by Director of Administration David Shook. Computer.
Start the presentation on there.
Yes.
Hit the little minus button, Lisa. There you go. Move it to the right.
Cool.
No, it's yeah, it looks like a little
That one right there.
screen. To the right. One more.
One more.
Sorry.
There we go. All right.
right.
Thank you for this time this evening. My name is David Shook. I'm Director of Administration here at Joshua Basin. Welcome to everybody on Zoom land and maybe on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and smash that thumbs up button. See if the clicker works. So currently, the way this process works is when we send out new water service applications, they don't always get completed. They might expire on the customer side. So from the time frame of October 1st through December 28th, we worked on 216 new water service applications, and of those, our staff fully processed 115 of them. And the reason I bring this up is because we get charged what's called an envelope for every DocuSign document that gets sent out to customers, whether they complete it or not. So that's something that General Manager Johnson and I have been evaluating. So next, I'll be giving you a sneak peek into one of the features of our new website. So for more context, in the full year of 2023, we worked on over 1,000 water service applications and completed 565, averaging 47 a month. That's a completion rate of 54%. So like I mentioned, even though we're sending them out, they're not always getting completed. They expire, they get timed out. If a customer starts the application and then doesn't complete it, and then they go back into it, we still get charged for that envelope. When we get them back, there's a 3.5 day envelope turnaround. So we decided to look at that and decided to make a change. So one of the things that we're very excited about on the new website is to have a web form that is also through DocuSign. So customers can go on there. This is actually the profile image from a mobile device. So that's exactly what our customers are going to see when they go on a mobile device and water service. So even if a customer clicks that button down at the bottom that says start water service, it doesn't count against our envelope total count until they click submit at the very end. So they can get 99% of the way through and abandon it or have to go pick up a kid from school or anything like that. And it doesn't count against us, which is going to save the district and our customers money. So our customers mostly contact us by phone, and we're happy to help. Our smiling faces are heard through the line as well. So during that same period of 10/1 through 12/28, our office received over 3,300 phone calls. We returned phone calls to customers within 1 business day. Those calls averaged 196 seconds in length. However, the talk time average was 154 seconds. Another thing that we're evaluating is the phone tree. Customers, when they call in, they have to go through a series of buttons to press to reach us. So we are also reviewing that for better efficiency. So the top 5 phone call subjects, questions related to a bill, water availability. We also receive calls about other districts and refer them out. We are supporting other districts without their knowledge. So we frequently get calls asking about water availability. We politely say that we have contact another water district in the area. So next is starting service, development questions and reporting leaks. So with development, I've also created a web form on the new website that's going to cut that whole process down immensely, is what I anticipate. So it also includes lots of easier to understand information. Our customers and potential customers email us a lot. So during that period of 10/1 to 12/28, we received over 1,100 customer service emails. Emails vary in complexity, and some have threads of 12 to 15 replies between our specialists and our customers. These are not included in the count. And this number doesn't reflect received or pending emails. The 1,100 are those that are marked as complete, and they're placed into a complete inbox. And our staff is adamant about moving those emails over so that it can be marked as complete. And we typically respond to emails within minutes. Emails sent by customers on weekends and holidays get a reply within 1 business day. The top 5 email subjects: water availability, questions about a bill, starting service, development, and owner-tenant water service. Coincidentally, another new web form has been created on our new website that would allow our customers to go on and complete that information, reducing time and resources and allowing for more efficient transactions. However, our customers still enjoy in-person visits. Who would? Right? We want everybody to walk in with a smile on their face and leave with a smile on their face. Our specialists work hard to make sure that there's coverage during hours of operation, including lunches, training opportunities, and restroom breaks. We are also adamant about watching the window for cars that may pull in and park in our parking lot so that we can go and help customers. We greet and acknowledge each person who enters the building, even when on the phone with another customer or replying to an email. We installed an office doorbell for the times we are in a meeting and the customer visits. We routinely monitor the parking lot during trainings and meetings. I included a picture of donut and coffee because we do enjoy donuts and coffee at the end of the month. To that. So we've also made the lobby more inviting. We've hung meter reading posters, new repurposed table for completing paperwork. If you haven't seen the table, it is actually one half of what used to be a huge table. So we repurposed both of those and use those quite frequently as well. We posted the board of directors headshot photos. If you haven't seen those, they're right out here. So the customers can see your
Great picture.
beautiful smiling faces when they come in. Remove unnecessary clutter and monitor and post flyers for current updates. The top 5 in-person visits, we couldn't come up with 5. So the top 2, making payments and development questions. So our in-person visits in October, we averaged just over 7.5 customers a day. November, almost 9 a day, and December, just over 11 a day. So there's my arrow. Okay. So 93% of customer interactions were completed by phone or email. So the remaining 7% are here in the office. And our newest customer support specialist is bilingual and has been an invaluable addition to our team by assisting our Spanish-speaking customers. The top customer concern, which may or may not have been anticipated, was the shift of the payments fees from the district to the customer. The community is under the impression that we collect that as revenue or profit. A few customers have changed their payment methods. The last month, there were over 4,500 customer payments via the Paymentus platform. So now that I've addressed the top concern, there's some good news. Google reviews. Here are 7 of the 18 positive reviews from 2023. We received many 5-star Google reviews, increasing our overall rating to 4.1, which is pretty good. Just a couple of years ago, our rating was 1.9. Our goal is to continue to earn these ratings from the community. So there's an example of 5-star review. There's one more. That one says, bill is easy to understand. Office staff is lovely and provides great customer service. Thanks for the prompt call back. Excellent customer service, 0 problems in 12 years we have lived in Joshua Tree. This one's a little long, so I'm not gonna read that one. They were able to help me turn on water service very quickly and easily. Very prompt email reply. As a new homeowner, interactions with Joshua Basin have been straightforward and efficient. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank Jeremiah and General Manager Johnson for allowing our staff opportunities to learn more about your side of the district. I think that's going to be valuable for us in learning more and increasing our knowledge base. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Shook?
Vice President.
Yeah, I have a few. Just one comment at the top. I'd still like to see the text be bigger on these slides, you guys. It needs to be at least 16 point in the body.
And I checked it myself.
Okay, well then it needs to be 18 because now I'm old.
Okay.
So I just had a couple of questions. I'm amazed at these numbers. 3303 phone calls. Are those all customer service calls or are those some calls that are going somewhere else?
Those are calls from our Digium. I can get reports from those and those are directly to our customer service,
Wow.
our customer
Wow.
support.
That's incredible. I'm very pleased to hear about the new web forms. I can't wait to see those. I know that that's going to really be appreciated by the ratepayers. You kind of went a little fast on one slide. You mentioned another web form. It was a third one. And it was regarding, was that the owner tenant one? Is that what it was? Okay. I wasn't quite sure what that one was. Okay. Is there a chair outside here where people could sit in our lobby space? I couldn't remember. Okay, great. I really appreciate the removal of the clutter. It looks a lot more professional now, I think. And I think that the only 7% come into the office. I was really glad to hear that because that's a great argument for, demonstrating that, we're off on Friday, but look, we only have 7% of our customers who really feel like they need to come in. So that's really great. So I just looked, I couldn't remember how much is the fee that Paymentus charges?
$220.
Okay, I thought it was 220. So, because I did 260 and it was $11,000 a month or something, but I guess it's less than that. That's a lot, but that goes to Paymentus.
It goes correct.
Yeah, wow. Wow. Okay, and then I had one more thing, so you said a couple of years ago, the ratings on Google weren't that good. Do you mean 2 years ago or was it 3 years ago or?
I think it was up to.
It was about 3 or 4 years ago. I noticed it and there was, a lot of times people will spend the time to complain, but not.
Yes,
to put a
that's right.
Good comment. And there was a couple of complaints that were really old. And so we started this little promotion within the department of, who can get the most Google reviews.
Mhm.
And
Ah.
it's actually turned out to be a really fun little project and we're receiving really good feedback and we're receiving feedback as well that where we can find improvements. So that our customers are taking the time to actually, go and put a nice review has been a good reflection of good customer service. And not that we didn't have good service before we did, but we went through a huge staffing shortage and we had COVID to contend with the office.
Yes,
So that
I remember.
I think contributed to having that lower review in the past.
Yeah, I was really happy to see that. Congratulations, you guys. And Danny, you were mentioned by name in the one we just looked at, so that was really nice. So is the new website going to have any feedback opportunity on it?
There's gonna be analytics that we can collect on it, but that's mostly what pages that are visited.
Yeah,
most.
yeah.
We do have a customer concern form that anybody can submit at any time, and that's always available. So
Oh,
if there's a
okay.
concern, they can submit.
And that's a web form again.
Yes.
Yeah,
That one's not a web form,
okay. Maybe it could be, right?
possibly.
Well, maybe not before launch. So, and do we have any signage that says, give us feedback or we'd like to hear what you think or anything like that?
We're trying to navigate the best way to.
Okay.
do that. We don't want to seem needy. We want to earn those reviews.
Okay.
So it's mostly just from, the positive interactions that our staff has with customers. And we mentioned nonchalantly, if you feel enticed to leave a Google review, please do so.
Mhm.
It's a little hard because I was looking at creating a QR code that would take customers directly to it, but it doesn't quite function that way.
Mhm.
So I'm still looking at how to navigate that.
You have to be logged in as a user of Google to
Yes.
do it.
Yeah.
And the bad part about the Google reviews is once they're there forever.
Yeah.
There's one comment on there that's really off color. I think most people would agree, and I sent it
Right.
to Google and they've left it.
Mhm.
So we like the Google reviews, we're happy with them, but it's not the end all be all. We receive feedback in many different ways. And if we do receive an email of concern, we can do that as well.
That's all for me. Congratulations again, you guys. That was very interesting.
And we'll
Sure.
be bringing these to you 3 times a year. Bigger font.
Yeah, I would be curious. I have a landline that gets about 70% of the calls are what would be called spam calls. In other words, they're generated by something. Does this district get those calls on the phone number or are they filtered out?
No, they're filtered out, but mostly through that phone tree. So you want to have that phone tree there because the robot's not going to press a button to get to customer service.
Okay, that's good to know.
Director Jarlsberg?
I appreciate the questions that and responses that have been mentioned. I'm wondering if the Google reviews, particularly ones that have questions, do you respond to them online? I know I've been reading some Google reviews where the owner responded.
Mhm.
Yeah, as Mr. Shook described, that we're still navigating how to
Okay.
handle the social media piece of this. We will reach out to them individually, though. It may not be directly on Google, but we'll
Oh.
reach out to the person if there's an issue.
Yeah, I was just thinking
Especially, I
that,
mean, if they're a customer of ours, obviously, if they're not a customer of ours, we may not have their contact information. But
Yeah.
I think most of them have been customers of ours. I think there's one review on there that is not a customer of ours. They put their upset review on the wrong water district.
but I was thinking the one that you mentioned that was negative, that's hung out, that maybe you could say something to it, like, I don't know, if
There's-
there would be some
there's-
response to it.
There's a sensitivity as well,
Yeah.
because sometimes the concerns are, maybe someone's having trouble paying their water bill and they're upset because their water bill is unpaid and they're mad at us about it. So I think
Right.
it's hard to respond to that because you don't want to point that out necessarily on that
Yeah,
public forum.
but I have noticed that there's kind of pro forma responses that these companies
There are.
do, you know, that are kind of vague,
Well, yeah.
just for a response, you know.
No, you make an excellent point. That would be something that we'll have to develop in social media and strategic communications plan, which is essentially finished and will be incorporated into policy in the future once it comes to the board. Kathleen, that for a couple of years. So that's something that would be in there and gives us that avenue to make those responses. But each of these things, remember, takes a person. So that
Yeah.
is, extra staff time to make those responses. So reaching out right now individually to the customers has been the process that we're using.
Which is good.
Yes.
Yeah, good. I too was kind of blown away by the numbers, so I appreciate hearing them. It was kind of interesting that October was a number and then it was more in November and then more in December. And December, there were a lot of holiday days that, I mean, were so kind of interesting. Maybe people were home more, so they did responses or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to.
It's kind of-
to tell. Yeah, also, if you look at the, two or four, actually, the one that has the DocuSign for 2023, there's a dip in September and October as well, so there wasn't as much interaction as
Maybe we're out playing more
the summer.
in nice weather.
So,
Yeah.
but it'll be interesting to see what patterns, transpire in the future once we continue these.
Thank you for that information and for the improvements on the website. I'm gonna go there soon.
I think there's one point too that we learned is that most of our customer visits, we showed the average on the slides, most of them happen around payment day, which makes sense. There are some days we have one customer all day long that walks in.
Oh, right, yeah.
Director Short.
Yeah, just a comment. I noticed the numbers as well. I check the Google reviews pretty regularly too, so it's good to see that we're improving. It's a testament to all you guys' work, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad you're looking.
Citizens Advisory Council Chair, David Carrillo, do you have anything?
I just wanted to say that. Not loud enough.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say that the visual on this presentation was great. Job. And there's lots of really good information on the day-to-day and month-to-month, which is really good to see and soak up at the same time. So it gives us the ability to see what you're doing, so we understand too. We're all doing, so I think we're all working together really good, and that's a good thing. That's all I have to say. Thank you for having me.
I was just sort of curious about, the charge that we put on people that use a credit card or whatever to make the payment. Are we still hearing any complaint or heat over that little $2 thing?
It's it's been dwindling down,
Yeah.
little by little as I think people are getting used to it. You know, it's fairly common, practice in today's world about convenience fees for things. I mean, debit card at AM, PM. Or you can choose to pay more for the credit card price. So it's tough, but we're trying to work our way through it. Is it inappropriate time to mention Paymentus chatbot?
You can bring it up.
So, we're creating AI help with, Paymentus chatbot. So it's a very convenient way for customers to go on. They don't even have to log into their customer portal. They can enter in their account number and parcel number and say, pay my bill. And it will go in, and we have yet to officially name the chatbot.
We have a couple of fun
We have a
names.
couple.
Oh, okay.
But we're looking forward to getting that fully implemented because it's really convenient and easy to use. So like I said, they don't even have to log into their customer portal to make that bill payment. So we're hoping that we can kind of balance it out. The kind of negative connotation with the Paymentus fee with the convenience of using a chatbot.
And we do also provide other alternative methods of payment, as you know. So if they don't want to have that 220 fee assessed, they can pay by cash check. And we do have an in-house auto pay as well. So there's options there. But payment is it's convenient. That's why there's the convenience fee.
And just if I can add, we were able to implement that Paymentus chatbot at no additional cost because we renewed our contract with Paymentus, so they waived that fee that they would have normally charged.
And when are we looking at that rollout for our bots?
And I mean, it's been finalized, so it's in,
It's there.
Okay,
It's
within.
oh, okay.
It's small, right? So we're looking to see. if
Trying to
we
get
can
it
enlarge it, yeah.
enlarged or animated or something, so.
Okay.
And we want it to have a fun name. We just don't know what it is yet.
Kathleen has a question.
Behind you, or some,
Kathleen has a question.
I think Kathleen has. a question.
Tiny little arm, I didn't see it.
Is this, you're talking about rolling it out, of course, I'm gonna want to put it in the newsletter. Is this a February thing or a March thing?
It's gonna go out around the same time as our website.
February. Okay. Waiting to talk.
Do you have any public comment from folks on Zoom regarding this consumer report presentation? We'll get to you in a minute, Jasmine. I'm surprised she got something to say. Rate scenario analysis. Director of Finance, Ann Roman.
Thank you. Good evening. I feel like I'm really loud.
no,
No.
no, you're not.
I'm not, okay. All right, as long as I'm okay. I don't have a PowerPoint for you, but I think we have some kind of a brief report for you tonight regarding the rate analysis. I did some financial analysis regarding the scenarios that, if you recall, in February of 2023, the board adopted a new rate study by Bartle Wells Associates and voted to adopt the rate scenario A, but implemented lower scenario C rates. And staff was tasked with alerting the board should the need to implement the higher scenario C rates arise. So we did some analysis for you. And just wanted to share that information so you're aware that we're looking at this and keeping up with this. As of 12/13/23, which is when I did the analysis, the cash balances had risen about 10% or $1.5 million in comparison with the cash balances at the time that we gathered the information for the rate study, which was 6/30/22. Most of this increase was due to deferred work from supply chain delays and limited staff bandwidth to take on additional projects. Also, the cash balances fluctuate throughout the year, obviously, from inconsistent cash receipts and expenditures. So our cash receipts, as I always mention when we look at the financial report, are not even throughout the year and our spending is not even throughout the year. So depending on what point in time we look at these balances, they're going to fluctuate. As of 12/13/23, when I did this analysis, the unrestricted LAIF balance has increased by 803,000 or 7%. I just put that in there because I thought you might be interested to know how much of that 1.5 million was related to unrestricted cash. Net position, which we talked about during the audit presentation, rose over 6% or 2.7 million between 6/30/22 and 6/30/23. And the rate study reserve funding targets were met in fiscal year 22/23. So if you recall, when we did those reserve fund transfers, we talked a little bit about the fact that what the rate study projected we would be able to set aside in the reserve funds, we were able to do because we met all of our targets. And at 6/30/23, water revenues were down by $161,779 or about 4%. And consumption was down by 66,000 units, about 13% compared with the prior year. However, the district's revenues are still healthy and water shortage contingency rates, which were approved along with that rate study, are not needed at this time. We're not even close to that. In fact, staff recommends remaining at the scenario C rates and just implementing the routine annual escalation. So rate study scenario C does have an annual escalation built into it, as do all of the scenarios. And that is what we're planning to implement. And staff will continue to analyze the district's finances and alert the board to any needed changes and whether we need to implement any of those other scenarios or the water shortage contingency rates. No proactive changes are needed at this time. And I'd be happy to take any questions you might have about that.
Vice President Doolittle.
I have a couple of things. Thank you for this presentation. I was curious about this and had brought it up in a meeting. So one of the questions I had is in that first bullet, you say much of this increase is due to deferred work from supply chain delays and limited staff bandwidth. I'm trying to understand that. Are you saying, yeah, just explain that a little more and let's see if that.
So
helps me.
spending is slowed a bit because we're not able to obtain inventory as quickly as we might hope. We're, of course, also limited with some of the projects that we can take on. So basically what we've budgeted and what we anticipated spending is not quite keeping up the pace with, so our cash is reflecting that we're not quite keeping up the pace with what we might have anticipated spending.
Okay, so this is like supplies. This is not man hours, right?
Right.
Because when it said deferred work, I thought that, yeah, I just was, so you mean like projects?
Projects.
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
projects, more
okay,
projects.
all right, okay.
Not routine items, but things that we have to acquire inventory for, that type of thing.
And that's one of the decisions last year when we worked on the budget, was to get all of the supplies for CIRP and EC in our side yard. A lot of that's arrived so that we don't have this issue in the future because the supplies in the inventory are here.
Right. Right. And then, so the other thing that I, was concerned about, I've learned a lot since I've been on the board regarding finance and, I'm a great admirer of Director Roman and she does a great job for us. But still, I'm a little bit, of a nitwit when it comes to numbers, I think. And so, I'm just looking at this and I'm just wondering if we, if our net position rose by 2.7 million in a year, do we really have to, at what point do we say, maybe we don't, I know we've approved the rates, going up, but I'm just a little concerned. Do we really have to go up? How do we know? We know that we don't have to go up more than 5%, but how do we know that we even have to go up 5%?
Well, one of the things is Chromium 6 coming forth, and we expect in February that the State Water Resources Control Board is going to approve the 10 NCLs, which includes, we'll end up with a close to $17 million project. So that is one of the reasons that you want to keep consistent with the rate strategy that's in place so that we can be prepared to act if that project doesn't end up having to go into place.
Right, so to support the work that was projected in the rate study, the work that is anticipated that needs to be done, which will hopefully have an update to the CIP at some point in time, so we can see how that has changed since our last one was done in 2015. And that's what we used for the rate study. But to stay in line with that CIP plan and the work that was projected in the rate study, we should stay on track with the rate study. The reason that the net position is complicated, there are a lot of factors involved in that, including capital assets. So we've increased our capital assets that improves our our net position. So it's not cash necessarily. And the net position, also, there was another thing in there, sorry. It just flew out of my mind. So anyway, it's not all cash. I'll mention that. And sorry, I'm trying to think of that thing that escaped me just now. We can talk a little bit more about that, net position and what that means, but there are several factors involved in this, and whether we continue to stay on course with the rate study. I would recommend staying on course with the rate study because we have when we decide that the work that we've projected within the rate study is not needed, then we would be advised to stay on track with the rate study rates. And like General Manager Johnson mentioned, chromium is a big factor for us that's going to be coming up. So, of course, we don't want to just be putting money in the bank. So we're watching those LAIF balances. But another consideration I mentioned before, if those balances do get a little bit on the high side, or what I would perceive as maybe higher than we would want to be at the time, we have some ideas about what we can do with that extra cash that would actually benefit the ratepayers, such as paying down the CIRP loan early. That would save interest. I actually talked with someone regarding the investment options because we're looking into the class product, and one of their recommendations was that we consider paying down the CalPERS unfunded accrued liability completely to the extent that you can, because that will always be recalculated. But there are plenty of places that we can utilize that cash if we have excess cash that would benefit the ratepayers. So I can offer that.
And I could also say that while it was deferred, doesn't mean it's not going to be done. It's still planned to be done. So the money's there for the projects. The project didn't go away. It just slowed.
Correct. Good point. Yes.
Yeah, and I would just say that, I'm in my 4th year now on the board, and I've enjoyed this job. And I hope to continue to do it. But I know that since I've come here, I've always been confused about what work we're doing. So it always helps having a presentation like we had today. And, being able to see the projects and then being able to see clearly, somehow, all together where you can say, well, if we don't do the rate, so we're not going to be able to do this. We're not going to be able to do this. And that's been difficult for me to glean and to be able to say, and I want to be able to tell ratepayers, exactly, if I had a clear picture. And I know we're going to be working on the strategic plan, and I'm just, expressing my hope that that comes along soon, because that would provide me with some of that information.
The budget does also generally align with the rate study. We look at what the rate study projected our spending would in each year. And so when we're developing the budget, that is something that we aim to do.
And don't forget the project list that will be in each of our agenda packets. Should be on the 1st of the month going forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all from me.
Director Fick,
No questions.
Director Jarlsberg.
A couple of things. I just want to reiterate for myself as well. What we voted to adopt was scenario A. and we actually implemented the lower rates under scenario C. So I just want to make that point too. We're not at A.
No.
We're not considering it at all.
That's correct.
At this point.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, with this report. Also, Director Doolittle mentioned or questioned this sentence about the supply chain delays, and I wondered what the limited staff bandwidth meant.
Well, historically, I've been here over 15 years now. And so historically, the budget, it tends to be a little more ambitious than in reality what can be executed. And so I would say that that's really what I have in mind with that statement. So we might include, 20 projects, but we can only really execute 15.
I mean, how much the staff can be stretched.
Correct.
But I think of bandwidth as internet, so I mean, that's why I was like,
Understood.
I need to figure it out.
I think it could also be related to the fact that we had 25% of our workforce that we hired last year. So we were, so shorthanded for so long. So
Yeah.
That, definitely contributed.
Yeah, but now it makes sense.
Yes.
Reading it, okay. The other thing is that we had the consumption go down 13%. I'm wondering if that's partly the result of our conservation campaign. I mean, we knew that that would mean lower income because there's lower water going out. So is there any way to know? Has anybody ever talked about, I'm cutting back for you guys, or anything?
We think that some of the consumption is down because Airbnbs have not been fully
Utilized, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's another good
But
point.
that's also an assumption. We, just
Right.
looking over our accounts.
That's difficult to know exactly. We can go back and trend. And I think at the end of the fiscal year or when I presented the preliminary June financials, we looked at a 10-year graph of consumption.
Oh.
And, we could see that it had gone down during the years that the conservation mandates came out, and then it kind of creeped back up and then started to come back down again as that came to the forefront again. So yeah, and there were so many factors involved in that. It can be simply that we had a wet winter and, water was not needed to the same extent. So it's very difficult to say
Right,
with certainty.
okay. Yeah, otherwise I think it sounds good and thank you for the report.
Director Short.
You all covered everything I was curious about, so I got nothing.
Oh, you have something.
I did.
I just thought I'd mention, because we might have we do have some new viewer listeners on Zoom, that the CIRP is a capital improvement plan. In other words, we and the bond that we borrowed with to pay for it. It was a general we recognize that we had a lot of business to do. We had a lot of work to do in the field to replace some of our worn out infrastructure. And it became necessary to borrow $3,010,000 to hire 5 more people and also a huge amount of equipment and substantial amount of equipment for their use. And so when we were talking about ways that we could save money, it was to when we had potentially surplus money, it was to pay down on that bond debt so that we would not pay so much for interest, the interest cost. Also, the other one that was mentioned, that was an abbreviation, was LAIF. It was mentioned 2 or 3 times. That's the Local Agency Investment Fund, and it's operated by the state of California. It's a safe way for us to invest our surplus funds, savings, whatever we'd want to call that.
Majority of our funds.
It's fully insured, and the interest is modest, shall we say, but it's a lot better than bank audit interest. So, and also too, the way the money flows, they're very liquid up there, in the state. It's run by the Treasury Department. Not the controller, it's the Treasury Department. And it's very liquid too. We can draw from that account, and get the money, either in a day or the same day even. So when we anticipate spending, we will draw money from that LAIF account at the state and then put it in a local bank and then write checks out of the local bank. And those checks are reviewed by the board before they go out. Members of the board physically sign the checks, review and sign the checks, look at receipts and such, and sign the checks before they go out, in addition to our director of finance and also the general manager. So I just thought I'd expound on that a little bit to maybe intrigue one or two of our new fans out there in TV land. I think that was pretty much all from me. David Carrillo, Citizens Advisory Council Chairperson, do you have anything on all this?
Yes, just a little refresher. You are saying that the state is expected to pass?
But I'll talk about a little bit more of my general manager's report, but yeah, that looks like they're going to meet in February to discuss it. And it looks like that MCL is going to pass.
I understand it's a mandate and we're gonna have to follow it. And so how long would we have to make it happen? And when would switching to the higher rate happen if this happens in February?
It's a complicated question, multi-layers there. I believe we would have 3 to 4 years to implement. I think as long as we're making progress and we demonstrate design and progress, that we may be given more grace so that we can be more careful about how the cost impacts the ratepayers. But it's a complicated question that I would need more time to research before we get more information.
So maybe we'll wait till February passes and hopefully they won't.
They said they were going to do that last February, so I'm hoping.
Right,
Right. I know. I'll answer.
yes.
Thank you.
Do you have any public comment on this issue?
Kathleen has something. You want to recognize her?
It's that tiny arm in the far
Public
corner.
Information Officer Kathleen Radich.
Yes, I just want to follow up on the topic of how conservation may or may not have played a part. And again, that is hard to measure. However, I was in a meeting recently with the Mojave Desert Resource Conservation District and the National Resource Conservation Services. It's the sister federal agency. And it was stated that in their observation, Joshua Tree has demonstrated and is way ahead of other desert communities on their conservation efforts. There are no lawns in Joshua Tree.
Yep.
And they went on, you know, it was wonderful. You weren't there. I got to absorb it all. But I just want to let you know, everything adds up and the conservation efforts are being realized. So I just wanted to share that because it was just last week. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on this matter? Hearing none. Number 8, the action calendar. Design request for proposal for E21 reservoir refurbishment project. Presented by our interim director of operations, Jeremy Benazario.
Good evening, everyone. Gonna be hard to follow David's presentation with this, but
No donut.
no donuts. This one. But yes, this is for the design for the RFP for the RE21 reservoir for the rehab for this. It's recommended that the board approve that Dora design the RFP for us. I'd like to mention that this was also presented during our last WRO with Vice President Doolittle and Director Charlesburg. We vetted this and
A WRO is a what?
Water resource operation.
Thank you.
So just to give a little brief background on this, this is a reservoir in the far northwest part of our district. It's a smaller reservoir. It only serves about 35 customers.
Oh,
It was built post earthquake, the Landers 1992 earthquake. So the reason why I mentioned this is because it's only one of 3 reservoirs that we have that is actually bolted to its foundation. So it makes it, the structural wise, a little bit complicated. So the design of this, we're facing some structural issues on the inside. There's no records to indicate that the rehabilitation has been done on this project since it's first been constructed. So it's definitely lacked some maintenance over the years, for sure. We're posed some integrity problems with our overflow pipe, which is placed on the inside of the reservoir, which we want to move with standard practices to the outside of the reservoir. The inside part of the ladder is corroded, and that needs to be addressed as well, along with some other structural issues with that. So we want to make sure that this reservoir has its longevity and reliability for the customer base that we have, along with keeping the water quality up to par the way we like it. So we actually got 3 bids. So we started with 3 options, narrowing it down to just one, to Adora. With this project, these engineering firms were carefully selected based on their experience, expertise, and proven track record in similar projects. Excuse me. Each firm is reputable and demonstrated expertise in structural assessment, including coating applications of the reservoir of the interior and exterior components. Given the importance of this project, it is essential that we move with choosing the right engineering firm, which we have vetted Adora. So attached is the actual RFP for the design of the RFP through Adora on the back of this. And we're only looking at a physical impact to develop this RFP of $47,113. Any questions that the board has?
Vice President Doolittle.
Well, as he said, we did review this in the committee meeting. But I do have a question. So do we have an idea how much this project's going to cost overall? This is just the design, but I don't think I asked that at that meeting.
It's we're estimating it's gonna be around $300,000 to $350,000. But that is just an estimate right now, until we actually get a better look at the reservoir and the actual structural part of it. The reason why it's more expensive is because the structural integrity of the reservoir is having issues.
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand. I don't know much about earthquake building, but so you don't want the reservoir bolted to the foundation is what you're indicating.
So that was the common practice after the earthquakes, was to bolt these reservoirs down. Now they want the reservoir to have some movement with it, and they've come out with different technologies as different couplings and valves that allow movement for the reservoir to actually move on its platform.
So it kind of rolls with the earthquake, right? Yeah, it's supposed to be breaking away from the voltage.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have. That's a lot for a small number of ratepayers, but it is what it is. Thank you.
Director Fick.
Yeah, the bolting was gonna be my first question. Okay, so do you anticipate this being used more than the 35 customers? Where exactly is this reservoir?
This is on the far northwest section. It's on the border of our district. Not as far as Landers, you could say, but the dump is in sight of where this reservoir is.
Okay, so that's
it
east.
touches the boundaries of high desert water. So the potential of build out in this area is there. So currently there's 35 customers on it, but the way building is going, there's a lot more room for improvement in that area for build out.
It's on the border over near High Desert and Bighorn essentially, far northwest.
Is it north of the little dump there, the land dump?
No,
Yeah.
south.
No.
Yes, it's hard to see. It's on a hillside, on a very, very long hill. Very, very long road that President Sloan hiked up yesterday, I believe.
Yes. Approximately, it's directly north of these local Bartlett Mountains we have here. It's kind of just north of those. And it's up there a ways. It's after Aberdeen, but before Ricci. I think that. General, and if you want to go up there, I know where it is now, so. Thanks to Jasmine, she helped us. She helped direct us to where she's on Zoom. To where it was.
Okay.
Yesterday. But if you want to go, well, we'd go. Dr. Jarlsberg, do you have any more, David? Dr. Jarlsberg?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about the increase in usage, because one of the things that we did observe. I actually went with President Sloan for a site visit, and we never did see it, but we saw the way to it. And there's a lot of open space out there. That's one of the things that we did notice. And there's beautiful views, and we have a resident that lives out there that is there because of the view and the kind of isolation too there. But so I think there is potential of it being over time, obviously, will have more than 35 uses probably. I also wanted to mention it's kind of at the end of Sonora before you run into the hill. You know, it's northwest of Border, and then Sonora just kind of runs up to the hill where it is. And that's a fairly well-used road. I think a lot of the residents there use it.
A better direction would be Sunny Vista and Moonlight Mesa Road.
Yeah, we were there, and it's not marked very well. That's why I said Sonora. That's why I said Sonora.
It's one of our farthest reservoirs away.
Yeah,
We encompass 96 square miles. It's out there a ways.
I did have a couple of things from the RFP response that was explained in the committee meeting, but I thought maybe we should do it here too. Like they're talking about installing a doghouse manway. Can you explain what that is?
Doghouse manway. Currently, the older reservoirs only have a small access port to the reservoirs. So the doghouse manway is exactly what it sounds like. It looks like a doghouse in a sense, and it allows for, after the reservoir has been drained for inspection and for recoding purposes, you open up that doghouse manway, which is, I would say it's probably 5 by 5 access point almost. And it allows the rest of the water to be drained out. So you don't have any standing water in the reservoir itself, and it allows better access for staff to get in there to do these inspections and to do the recoding process.
And this is when it's empty of water.
This is when it's empty.
And what is the plan to do with the water while you're working on it?
So the plan to do with the water is to cycle the water out to the customers so we don't waste any water. So the water will be used by all those customers during this process. And then we have 2 temporary reservoirs up there, which will be transferred over once that reservoir reaches probably around 2 feet of water. And that way the customer base won't have any interruptions to their water use.
And then again, how long is the fixing process about to take, do you think?
Generally, a recoding process is usually 3 to 4 weeks, but since there's some structural issues here, I would imagine it's probably more around 5 to 6 weeks.
Oh,
It's
okay.
still pretty quick.
Oh, yeah, okay. So a little more than a month.
Yeah, a little more than a month,
Oh, okay.
as long as they don't encompass any
Oh, totally.
problems.
Surprises. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And we did have a question about the road. I won't go into it too much because we might have a customer that wants to go into it. But the road appears to have been improved because it's quite steep.
Yes.
And as President Sloan mentioned, he got all the way to the top and still couldn't see the tank. So obviously there, you know, we can see that, and the roads around there are terrible too, so. And which is probably good for the people that want to live in isolated places, but not for workers going up there on a regular basis. How much activity would take place in this month, do you think?
So the main part of the activity is gonna be obviously in the very beginning on moving all the equipment up there. So once they're positioned up there, very little activity going up and down the mountain, you could say. Everything's gonna be staged up on that site itself. That site is pretty tucked away inside that mountain pretty good. So it's pretty well hidden from public eye.
Yes. And yeah, and non-public eye. Yeah, which is good and, you know, probably fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Short.
Just out of curiosity, what was it that separated Ardura from the other two?
Adora, they are a very reputable company. They've done a lot of work with our neighboring water district of 29 Palms Water. I've had a lot of great meetings with them. I've had good meetings with each one of these engineering firms, and they were very easy to work with, very knowledgeable. They have a structural engineer in-house, so that makes it only much better, and it'll keep that cost down, so they don't have to sub that for me.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to sort of defend the people that have been working here over the last 8 or 10 years, and you know, a hint, so to speak, that there was some ignoring of that up there, of that tank up there, E21.
Oh, yeah.
And I was looking in the capital improvement plan for 2015, and that tank, along with, I think, the road too, are listed in there, and it points out, this is an engineer's report, by the way, DUDEC. It's they did the report on our restoration processes for all of our tanks, all 17 of them. And they mentioned in that report that the coating that's on the inside was good for 5 to 10 years. And so, and also there's a sort of a calendar-like thing in the CIP report indicating when money would potentially be spent on the specific item listed. And it's not indicated that we would do anything with that until 22-23 fiscal.
Oh,
And so we're on track, so to speak. There was no general managers or boards or staff or anybody else that was necessarily neglecting it. It was simply that we're following our engineer's report. Really, I just saw that. Slip that in there. Another thing about the 35 customer thing is for years now, it's been acknowledged that an issue we have here with paying for things is that we have great distances between customers, ratepayers. And so there are comparatively few people that pay for this stuff, as compared to some suburban neighborhoods where the houses are 20 feet apart. It's very dense. You got shorter runs and all the other kinds of stuff. And Copper Mountain Mesa had a problem with this in the early days, but it's just part of doing business. But then over time, it's going to fill in. And we did, you and I did see evidence of new building up there, fresh stuff.
It's great blend.
Jasmine's property is really Dash Pippin, his place was really beautiful and fresh up there, and people are investing substantial money up there to be up there.
Mhm.
And so it's like golf, you gotta play the ball where it lies, so to speak.
But let's not tell anybody about that place. They don't want any more people there.
Nobody watching these meetings. Not fair. David Carrillo, did we get a comment from you yet on this one? Okay. Thank you very much. Public comments, do we have any public comments? Jasmine, do you want to say anything in particular?
I would love to. Hi, everyone. My name's Yasmin Pico. I'm the resident actually below said tank that you plan on improving. I've actually wondered how to get in better touch with what's happening as the road that leads up to the tank does go through my property, and the road that goes to that road is directly in front of my property. And I this summer met Brandon, who is like he seems to be in charge of the asphalt project that went in there this summer. About the traffic in the area, I've been here since 2019, and there used to be just traffic going up the hill there from off-road vehicles mostly. Since the asphalt road has been put in, it has attracted all kinds of vehicles to come and not just run through our property, but of course go up to your tanks. And I know they're protected up there, and you have cameras and all that stuff, but it has been a wear and tear on the road until recently when Brandon put in a set of poles with a chain. But unfortunately, because that's all the way at the end of Moonlight Mesa, there's quite a bit of road on Moonlight Mesa before you get there. And the corner is our home. So it has attracted more traffic, and I'm hoping that I can maybe have some help in controlling that traffic, possibly making it a private road or something. And I was also curious about the size of the crew. How many people are expected to be on the crew? Like how many vehicles, like how big of a project will it be ultimately?
I'm not sure if she knows that during public comment, we usually can't have full responses. So we're happy to talk to you, because some of the answers I don't know off the top of my head, but on our CIRP crew, we have 5 folks on our CIRP crew. That's our in-house capital replacement program crew. This project tonight that is hopefully going to be approved is for the design portion. That will just be a couple of engineers that go up there and do site surveys. So this design portion will be very limited when it comes to folks being up there. The actual rehab, there'll be more, but I don't know the answer of how many more.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact protocol. This is
No, that's okay. We'll get a hold of you and be happy to have a conversation with you.
Thank you so much. I would appreciate that.
Okay. Brandon, she's referring to is our capital improvement replacement fund, or fund, let's take fund off of that, capital improvement replacement
Program.
supervisor. Thanks with Brandon. Is
President Sloan, can I just make
redirect.
one quick comment? I just wanted to say that I appreciated being able to go out and meet a customer and have an in-depth conversation and understand the concerns. And that she actually showed up to the board meeting. Yes.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah.
It was a
It was-
pleasure
it
meeting
was-
you both. It was nice to see that you have a board that's that concerned, that is willing to come out and be that hands-on, and I appreciated that. I already appreciated the company and your level of customer service. I've been very happy, and that this shows me why. Because you guys have a obviously tremendous amount of communication and care for what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's her little one.
We were commenting, you have a very cute dog.
She has several dogs.
She has several.
Several.
Thank you.
Is there a motion from the board to approve the Ardura request for proposal as presented?
Make the motion.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. General Manager Johnson, a roll call, please.
President Flowin,
Aye.
Vice President Doolittle,
Aye.
Director Fick,
Aye.
Director Drosberg,
Yes.
Director Short.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion carried. Item 8B, first fiscal quarter ending September 30, 2023, financial report. Local Finance and Roman.
Thank you again. We have the highly anticipated 9:30 financial report for you tonight. I will point out to start that the Finance Committee did review this report on January 10th. And this is the first quarter report, which is always the least meaningful of the year because of the limited transactions at this point in time. It also tends to be presented later because of not causing confusion with the prior fiscal year and the 6/30, which is always happening a little bit later. So we try to keep them separate so we're not overlapping the quarters and talking about two different quarters that can be confusing. So I will try to keep this as brief as possible. I did include a finance facts sheet for you where I've just pointed out a few little items that I tend to try to mention, but in case I forget to mention them, they're here in print. And for those who may be just reading the agenda and not watching the meeting. So here we have first box cash. I mentioned there that although it ended at a high point at the fiscal year 6/30/23, it was down already over $1 million because of inventory purchases in the 9/30/23 quarter. Top right, we had meter sales statistics for you. Meter sales had slowed compared to last year by this time, 9/30. And the quarter ended 9/30. The district had sold 28 meters versus 5 at that point in time the year prior. And so obviously non-operating revenues are down as a result. And that reminds me of the item that I forgot when we were talking about the other report, the net position. And net position and the cash will also increase because of non-operating revenues such as the capacity fees that we've been collecting over the past few years when development has been really heavily occurring. So here we also have an item of interest reimbursement that we received from the insurance company of $196,000 about 18 months after we filed that claim. And we also saw investment interest, life interest risen to 3.59% as of 9/30. Actually, we just checked it. We just had the interest posting for the next quarter and it's up to 4% now. So we anticipate that might be coming down, but it is at a high at this point. And that was the highest level since 2008. So Also wanted to mention here in the very bottom box that the Finance Department and General Manager will be investigating the California class investment products as an alternative to LAIF, and will be bringing forth additional information and a presentation as soon as that's feasible. And with that, I'll turn to page 29, our first page of our financials at a glance. We have at the top left, the cash balances in green. They're totaling $16,585,688. And that's broken down between unrestricted at 5.4 million, legally restricted at 4.2 million, and board designated at 6.9 million. And that compares with last quarter, which was at 17,663,000. And the prior year, at the same period of time, 9/30, we were at 15,647,000. So that is an increase from last quarter of 938,000 and an increase, I'm sorry, a decrease from last year of 1,077,640. I still have that note wrong there. It should say decrease, but it is a negative number. So hopefully that still makes some sense. Cash flow in the top right box, our beginning balance of 17,663,328. For the quarter, we added a source of funds of 2,657,000, primarily from water payments, development fees, property tax and assessments. And there were no HDMC reimbursements in this quarter because there's a delay with collecting that. Life interest and miscellaneous receipts amounted to 408,000, and LAIF was actually 133,000 of that. So that was a nice little chunk of money. And our major use of funds during the quarter amounted to 3,735,000. Including debt service of 428,000 for our CIRP Capital Improvement Replacement Program loan, our CMM Copper Mountain Mesa principal and interest, and our capital costs and inventory amounted to 1.7 million there, including 4 replacement trucks, the general manager's truck, the D11 booster project, vacuum excavator, and the Tilford project. And again, over somewhere in here, I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it yet, over $1 million in inventory that was purchased in this quarter. And then we have operations and maintenance and payroll at 1.5 million. And then that brought our ending balance down to 16,585,688. In the bottom left in the yellow, we have property taxes and assessments. As of 9/30. And this is very, as I mentioned, it's not that meaningful at this point because we actually have not yet started receiving the assessments and property taxes from the county. We receive those generally in November. So we have billed or recorded all those revenues for a total of $2.1 million between the property taxes, the CMM assessments, and the standby assessments. And so far, we've only collected about 100,000, and that relates to the cleanup from the prior year, which I mentioned in the Finance Committee is due to the fact that we're enrolled in a teeter program with the county, which means that they basically guarantee that we will receive what they say that we're going to receive, and they'll make good on that. So we receive that usually after the end of the fiscal year, though. Then we have on the bottom right, development charges. Again, just the first quarter. So our quarter end and our year to date are the same here. We sold 5 meters for a total of 160,717. And including in those 4 were wastewater, and 4 additional upgrades that were paid for or purchased. I guess I should call them paid for. Any questions on that page?
Nope.
All right. Page 30. Top left, we have our operating budget versus actual costs, also known as our board report. Sorry about that. So we're at, when we're comparing with the budget, we're at about 25% of the year as of the end of this quarter, 9/30. And our operating revenues were hitting at 28%. Our non-operating revenues at 9%. In total, our revenues are sitting at about 23%. So that's pretty good. We're pretty close to that 25% mark. For our departmental expenses, you can see the breakdown there. I won't read them all, but I will talk about the bonds, loans, and standbys, which is at 78%. And that's because most of those costs hit at the beginning of the fiscal year. We also have the newly added report studies and plans, which was previously a capital cost, now in operations. Our capital improvement CIRP is slightly higher than the 25%, and that is always going to be a little trickier to predict because of the fact that that crew really works on capital projects and operating projects, and how much of each they do is going to affect this percentage. We have in total here 99%, I'm sorry, the capital overhead clearing 99%. That is where we allocate from the operating budget to the capital budget for overhead costs. And that's actually a good thing. That means we're reducing the operating budget and increasing the capital budget. So we're just moving those costs over. And in total, we are at 19% of the budget, and that is versus 25% of the year. So we're in a good position there. Budget adjustments on the top right. So we don't have any adjustments in this particular quarter, but I just mentioned there that we have a few forthcoming adjustments that we hope to bring with the next quarterly report, and that will be the GM's vehicle and Southern California Edison. There might be a few other minor ones that we talked about at the Finance Committee a little bit. And the bottom left, we have our consumption statistics over the rolling 12 months ending 9/30/23. We had consumption units of 459,000, down from 503 the prior year and 530,000, sorry, the year ended 9/30/2021. And so that's that 13% we're down from 2 years prior. And then our top 10 consumers on the bottom right, we have our usual customers that tend to make this list. JT Parks and Recreation at the top of the list this time. They just tend to move their position slightly on this list. We have an individual who is a frequent high user. And so, you know, obviously there's something purposeful happening there. I'm not sure if it's perhaps a business or something that's designated as an individual. Any questions on that page? Yes.
Just a quick one. Housing Partners, do you know who they are?
I don't know what they do.
The new one.
Yeah, I always assume it's got something to do with housing, but yeah, and I think I have it designated as that in my detailed report. So I believe I've looked that up at some point, but I don't know exactly where they are or what they're doing there. So yeah, I apologize. Any other questions on that page? Okay. And we have details starting on page 31. I won't read all of these off or we'll be here all night, but we have our totals for each of the accounts, including the numerous LAIF accounts. And you can see also in the middle box there, we have the breakdown between the legally restricted, board designated, and unrestricted, where those fall. So you can see how those totals are comprised. And the total restricted is sitting at 11,148,000 and the unrestricted at 5.4 million there. And between the current quarter 9/30/23 and the prior quarter, we see that decrease of 1,077,000, and compared with the year prior, 9/30/2022, there was an increase of 938,000. Any questions on that page? All right. Page 32, we have our cash flow detailed. So again, I read this in summary on one of the at-a-glance pages. But you can see here, we started the 17,663,000 up at the top. And then we have all of the detail of our source of funds. So our water bill payments came in at 1.9 million, property tax and assessment payments, meter installation and capacity fees, consumer project deposits, special services. We had that insurance claim reimbursement and our life interest, a little bit of money we collected from liens and bad debt, and our credit card rebate, and that totaled cash received of 2,657,000-ish. Then we used funds in the amount of 3,735,000 for debt service, inventory, operations, and salary and benefits. And then our capital costs are detailed out here for you as well, totaling 663,000, including four replacement trucks plus the GM's vehicle, the D11 booster, the vacuum excavator, the Tilford Phase 2 design and install, paving at the shop, Belmont design, E21 reservoir upgrade, a SCADA computer and software upgrade, tire changer, two-way radios, and annual water supply assessment. Those were the major costs, capital costs during this quarter. That left us with an ending balance of 16,585,000, and our total cash decreased 1,077,000, a bit more than that. Any questions on that page?
On the E21 reservoir upgrades, 16,207. Is that the road, or do we make a partial payment for our, no, we wouldn't have made a partial payment for the engineer because we had not approved it then.
That's to set up those temporary.
All of the reservoirs.
Thank you. I wasn't sure what that was. Any other questions on that page? All right, page 33, we have our property tax and assessment revenues and collections. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is not going to be the most meaningful quarter to look at here, but we do have our revenues recorded, and our revenues versus last year increased. They increased by 3% or 63,000. Our collections are again, very small at this point in time because our collections don't generally start until November. So at this point in time, in comparison with the prior year, the increase was 3% or $2,590. CMM prior year collections down by 48%, but that's only $3,290. All of this because we're so early on in the year and before those revenues actually start being collected. So any questions on that page?
No.
All right. Page 34, again, just reiterating the budget situation. No adjustments were made during this quarter, and we'll have the GM's vehicle in Southern California Edison and a couple other items that small items that we anticipate might be coming forward. Page 35, we have our board report summary. And as I mentioned earlier, total revenues at 23%, water revenues, operating revenues, in other words, at 28%. Property tax and assessments, we haven't started receiving those yet. And HDMC, that's billed in arrears, so we don't have anything there. We had, let's see, in total there, 19% for our expenses versus 25% of the year. That puts us in a good position. And then at the bottom of that page, we have our rolling check register, our regular check register. This does not include the customer utility refunds, but you can see there how that fluctuates throughout the year, averaging out to about 609,000 per month. And so you can really see how that does kind of ebb and flow over the years. Any questions on that page? I have a little bit of detail for you. I won't read all of these accounts on the operating board report on page 36, but I will point out there in the production section, we have our pumping, I'm sorry, our power for pumping, somewhere here, power for pumping. And that we anticipate reviewing the budget for. We're going to see if we can put some strategies into play. Maybe that will, impact how we have to change the budget. And otherwise, most of these accounts are really tracking pretty well. The ones that you see that are a little bit on the high side may be where the costs are falling early in the year. I call that front loaded. So that's often the case, as we'll see on, I think, the next page. As we move to page 37, we have under administration, our emergency preparedness is at 67.98%. And that's because we've already paid out for the contract for Gary Sturtevant for the emergency preparedness consulting. And so that will comprise most of the costs for the year. We also have under bonds, loans, and standbys at the very bottom. If we look at that, we see several 100% there. And again, that's because most of those costs fall at the beginning of the year. Any questions on page 37? Page 38, we have in the benefits allocated section, program 51, kind of right in the middle. We have the CalPERS classic line, which is kind of right in the middle of the benefits allocated section at 32.5%. And that's one item that is front loaded with the payment of the UAL and the ADP, which is the unfunded accrued liability and the additional discretionary payment that we make. And that was an $83,000 payment in total between those two right up front at the beginning of the fiscal year. And in the field allocated section, program 52, we have our uniforms up over 50%, and that is one account that appears to be front loaded to me also, where we'll incur most of the costs, at one time or primarily up front. And shop expense combined, which is nearing 50%, we're going to be looking at that one as well. So any questions on that page? All right. And 39, we have just a few accounts left here. These look like they're all pretty well in order. Again, that program 60 capital overhead clearing, there's some high percentages there. Don't be alarmed about that. That is just where we're transferring those operating overhead costs to the capital budget. So you can see that they're actually negative numbers. And so that is actually fine, not a problem. And in total here, we have our expenses for the fiscal year to date, quarter ended 9/30/23 at $1.584 million out of an $8.55 million budget. And so we're just under 19% there. Any questions on that page or the next, which is just the totals? Bless you. So moving on to page 41. This is our final page. This is our water sales consumption statistics. This is as of 9/30. This is looking at a rolling 12 months. And so as of 9/30/23 versus 9/30/22 and 21, you can see that consumption trending downward. And the decrease there between the 2 years, looking back to the 2 years prior, is 13.4%. And looking back to the prior year is 8.63%. So 2023 versus 2022. Again, as of 9/30. And we have our detail of the consumption ranking, the top 10. And I just have added just for interest's sake there, we have on the right, the 930 rank, and then we have the 22-23 rank and the 21-22 rank for comparison. So you can see where those, they're generally all on the list repeatedly, but they fall in a different sequence there as to their position with the highest consumption. Questions on that page? Or overall, since we're on the last page?
Vice President Dillard.
Oh, I had participated in a review of this already in the finance, and asked a lot of questions there. And I just want to make one comment, and I just appreciate having some of the terms defined on this report and some of the changes you've made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Fick.
Oh, well, I'd just be curious as to some of these water users. I know AutoCamp, they do their laundry elsewhere, so that's not their full usage as far as water go well. On the premises it is. And who's William W. Pyle Jr.?
It's a mobile home park.
Oh,
I'm not sure which one, the name of it, but it's, yeah, he has a mobile home park.
okay.
It's under his name though.
Now that one in Quail Springs, I always question being on this list because it's multiple units of individuals using the water. It's not one user. So just consider that when you're looking at the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
That's all.
Director Jarlsberg.
Yeah, I had a question on the chart also, and it's related to what I asked before, as you mentioned, where you fit them into housing. And I was wondering, it seems like auto camp should be commercial, not housing. I mean, even though it's,
Yeah, we don't have.
it looks like it's permanent residence.
Yeah, it could go in either, actually. We don't have a specific definition for that. It's
Yeah.
been
Yeah, I
sort of a
just,
judgment call.
Okay.
So, yeah, it
That's
could
fine.
be either or. We don't have a lot of commercial on this list, so yeah, that's interesting.
I've also wondered why the Memorial Park uses so much water. I know they have some lawn, but
They did a rehab, or not a rehab, an overhaul of their
yeah.
grass
Reduce it.
years ago, and I think they did go down for a while. I mean, we'd have to go back and look at their history, but it kind of has crept back up over the
They have a
years.
crematorium there.
Yes, they do.
Cause I was thinking maybe they use water there. I don't know. Just a weird question. I'm sorry.
I think I'm seeing grass there again.
Oh, there is some, but yeah,
Trying to find it. It's not running down the street anymore though.
right.
Anything further?
No, thank you.
Director Short.
I've got no questions. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention the part about how you say essentially the spending and the revenues come in waves. One of the big spending waves that we had was buying the pipe that's out there. How much is out there now, by the way? I'm curious about that. I mean, how many,
How much pipe?
it's still in feet and not miles sitting out there, right?
There's close to. Yeah, we're still waiting on some, but there's probably 9,000 feet out there. And I think we purchased closer to 15,000 total.
Well, the significant part of my point is that, at least I think it is that as a result of purchasing all that up front, then in these intervening couple of years or so that it's going to take you to use that, we're not paying for it there. So the cost of the pipe is going to be non-existent for a couple of years, and we're going to show a reduction in our spending then, which there's been a few things, but for a while we were spending $1 million a month roughly. And here we are, what we learned last Wednesday was that it's down in the 400,000 area again. So that's an example there too, about how the spending can go up and it can come down, it can go up, that kind of thing. Do we have, David, do you have anything on this? Do we have any public comment? Is anybody left that, we chased them away?
Sorry.
It's their money. Okay. So is there a motion from the board to receive and approve the first fiscal quarter financial report ending September 2023, please?
A motion.
Thanks, Dave.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. General Manager Johnson, roll call, please.
President Cohen,
Yes, aye.
President Doolittle.
Yes.
Director Fick,
Yes.
Director Jarlsberg,
Yes,
Director Short.
Aye.
Thank you very much. By all means. Reports and comments. This is for informational purposes only on subjects not covered by the agenda. No action will be taken. The board may provide staff with requests for future agenda items. Directors' reports. Vice President Doolittle.
I just have a couple of things. One is I was happy to see something in the lobby and it was a QR code and I tested it and it pointed us to Facebook. I was really happy to see that. A couple things regarding presentations. I know that there was a meeting with USGS recently. I'm just wondering, is there going to be any presentation anytime soon regarding that meeting? I'm very curious and interested in the data that USGS collects and what they've collected in the past, et cetera, and what our plans for the future.
They would be available for a presentation. Basically, it was just an informational meeting. Nothing transpired out of it that we were going to move forward with.
Oh, okay.
But it was just informational, but they did make themselves available. If you would like a presentation, I'd be happy to bring one.
Okay, thank you. And then just briefly, I mentioned this in the Water Resources and Operations Committee meeting, but there in the news recently, there's been a lot of news about what are called plasticizers, and this is the source of what makes plastic. And so they've released a lot of data about this. And for example, in a 1 liter plastic bottle, there are 250 million plasticizers in it. These plasticizers are microscopic and they can actually enter human cells. So this is going to be a future issue, I believe, a large future issue, because it's actually in a baby's first bowel movement. It's everywhere. So there's very few places where we don't have these. And obviously, if we're ingesting them, it would enter the waste streams that go into our aquifers. So at some point, this is something that we're really going to have to deal with. And I just wanted to make sure the district was aware of it. Thank you. All from me right now.
Director Fick.
I'm happy to see the class is being investigated, the investment firm. And I hope, well, I guess there'll be a presentation sometime in the next couple of months.
And we can fit it in.
Okay. And then also we do have me and Stacy are meeting with some people on the 22nd, Monday, the 22nd of January with US Water Alliance. Out of the blue, but it's an interesting group. And so we'll be finding out about them and their efforts and their agenda. And that's about it for me.
Thank you. Director Jarlsberg.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that I'm planning to attend the Region 9 board meeting and tour on January 30th in Palm Springs, which didn't get on the agenda list, which is fine. But the Region 9 is encompasses other agencies that are fairly contiguous with us, and it's a good time to network with other people that work in water in Coachella Valley, and the tour looks actually very interesting. That's why I was interested. It's a Desert Water Agency, which is in Palm Springs and not far from the airport apparently. So I think that'll be interesting. And I attended the virtually the MWA meeting. And it was a very quick meeting. Not a lot of substance. There was reference to, work with Morongo Basin. But I have a feeling that that will be reported by our general manager at some point. But I did have a question. They don't have TAC meetings anymore. And does anybody know why they're not doing that? Because we used to go to them and they were quite interesting, actually.
I think they,
Calendar.
yeah, it's on their calendar.
It is? I've looked and I haven't seen it.
We get a calendar for
That too. I'll print it.
Oh, okay. And then I just did want to say again that, I really appreciated meeting, on this little venture out to E21, a couple of, relatively new, customers. I mean, she said she's been here since 2019. But the other fellow was, fairly new house being built or finishing. And I think that's really good for me and good for the board and good for the district to have that kind of interaction, not just with your neighbors, but, really out there. I get to understand more what's going on in the hinterlands now. So I appreciated that. And I appreciate the opportunity to accompany President Sloan on these little tours. So that's it for me.
Director Short.
I did not attend any meetings, so I have no comments.
I caught a little bit of that MWA meeting. And the thing that I noticed a little bit in between the lines is that they announced or agreed upon or recognized, however you'd say it, the cost of an acre foot of water. And I think it was $628 for an acre foot of water. And I can't remember if they directly pointed it out or not, but they are a victim of circumstances also up there. We can't yell at them and blame them for raising the price of an acre foot of water for a few percentage points because they're subject to DWR, Department of Water Resources, I think is the ones that fixes prices on these things. And also too, because of where we are, way down at the bottom of the water chain, so to speak. More power is used to put the water down here as a result. And so we pay the premium rate for water. I don't know if it's more than anybody or not, but we pay a lot for the water simply because it takes a lot of juice to get it down here. A lot of juice to get the juice. I'll let it go at that. General manager report, I remember this time.
Thank you. Right, so I have a few things to report on. We have currently taken 53 acre feet of 500 acre feet of banking. It's currently ongoing. We're hoping that that will continue through the end of February so that we can show that off during our tours. We are under a contract with NWA for banking, and right now that contract provides the district with 15% shrinkage factor for any of the water that we take banking on behalf of NWA, and it's a pretty good deal. And I work together on a spreadsheet to really understand what that means, because it's harder to understand it when you say 15%. But like I say, in the dollar value, 15% of the 500 is approximately $45,000 in savings to the district, because that's what the district gets to keep in water. So it's a pretty good deal. But NWA also knows it's a good deal, and that contract was drafted up several years ago. And it's, my understanding, very unheard of to have that large of a shrinkage factor in a contract. So they want to have a discussion. So I'll be meeting with Don next week to talk about potential changes to that contract. We will be deploying the new website on January 30th. We don't expect any downtime, but if the website is down for any moments on January 30th, don't knock down the door. We'll get it up. If you do see any errors, any misprints, please let us know. We'll get those fixed right away. We're doing our best to deploy it without a bunch of bugs. The hardest part of this whole deployment was that everything from our current website was brought over in a migration. And so the cleanup has just been terrible. I would never do that again. I never recommend it. Start from scratch. So it's been quite an undertaking. mandates, 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 they just don't stop coming. Jeremiah and I worked on a brand new one that just came out late last year, due on December 30th. They gave us hardly any time, took about 40 staff hours to put together and get it turned in for them to say, well, we don't really know what we're asking for, so we're probably gonna send it back and ask you to do it again. A little bit frustrating, and they asked us to get a lot of the information off of other reports that we send to them, which I don't know why they can't get it off the
Right.
report that we already send to them. Anyway, that's just a little bit of a gripe. I don't mind providing the reporting. I just wish that the powers that be would get together and figure out what they're asking for. We're happy to provide it to them, but it's such a substantial staff effort to gather this data in multiple ways on a regular basis. So speaking of mandates, we have two new ones. The one one's called the Annual Inventory Report to the DWR, that's Division of Drinking Water. That one's gonna be due on March 31st, just came out, it's brand new, and now we have a clean trucks mandate. That one comes with a fee. So brand new ones of this year, and that's in addition to the ones that I shared with you in December that we have, what was the number? Over 70.
Yeah.
It's substantial. So I just wanted to really make sure that everybody understands how much effort that our district puts into it. And the one that we did in December, I was told that we were one of the only districts that submitted it. So we are on top of our regulatory activities here. We really take them seriously, but it's a lot of work. And CIRP is going to be shifting gears, and they're going to be working on the lead and copper rule revision, which is the verifying the pipe at the customer side and our side for the next couple of months, because that one's going to be coming due in October, and that is another unfunded mandate. But fortunately, we have the in-house staffing to get that done and get compliant with that new requirement. And lastly, I got to spend the last couple of days in Sacramento. This is a very, very last minute trip. I got contacted by Community Systems Water Alliance. Hopefully I said that right. Communities, yes, I keep mixing up their name. They are an agency that we have been a part of for a long time. They're a coalition that helps small agencies like us deal with legislative issues that impact us. Similar to Aqua, except for they're smaller, so we have a more collaborative effort and our voices get heard. In Aqua, the downfalls are so large, sometimes we get lost. But this one, we're actually, very much unified. And they have other alliance members such as Bighorn and Twin Palms, High Desert, Coachella Valley, Watsonville. So they have quite a few members, and that a few of the members that are experiencing the Chrome 6 issues got contacted. We were one of them, and they, on a very last minute whirlwind, very almost unagendized trip, took us to Sacramento to go speak with our assemblymen and our senators about our issue. It was super interesting. I learned a lot. It was very educational. I got to speak with a couple of the very young capital directors for our assemblymen, and they have very, very legislative directors, very big titles. I think most of them just barely graduated. So the meetings were interesting because they seem to be very unaware. And what's interesting when you go to these meetings is you have to really make sure that you're known, you leave yourself memorable so that they will give this message to your senator or to your assemblyman. And I think we made an impact at least with one. In fact, it was Greg Wallace's office. And when you walked into his office, the whole back wall was a mural of Joshua Tree. So I think he has a fondness for our area, and his chief of staff was very familiar with our area and knows that we're one of the districts within their representation that have the Chromium 6 issue.
Well,
So they are the ones that let us know that they expect to see the 10 MCLs. We'll find out in time. And their question was, what's our ask? And our ask was, well, I asked for $17 million. So I'm trying, but we're all impacted in the same way. And there is an assemblyman, Eduardo Garcia. He's out of Coachella Valley, and he is writing a Senate bill right now, or Assembly bill rather, that's going to have Chromium 6 funding in it. it's only $100 million. And so when I was sitting in that office, I said, we need 17, and Watsonville needs 30. That's not going to go very far. But it's appreciated, and I asked that she would carefully consider the language that they use for obtaining those funds, should that bill be passed, because they can make it unattainable, like the marriages program where you can't hardly apply. So she was very adept. She understood our area, and definitely I felt heard, and I think our message will get sent over to the assemblyman. We got to meet Shannon Grove in person, and again, it was whirlwind, so she was a meeting in the hallway. One room, it was so small that not everybody could fit, so people had to not get in, but I got into all the meetings, so I was excited about that. It's an interesting town, and what I learned the most is that if you want your voice heard, you gotta go there. And that's something I know Director Doolittle has been discussing a lot. So we had the opportunity. I would have liked to have invited more, but it was just such a quick turnaround, and I'm feeling a little exhausted now because I just got back this morning. But it was overall educational. I feel beneficial, and hopefully our voices got heard. And that is the end of my report.
Could I just could the alliance name again?
Community Systems Water Alliance. They were the organization that was very instrumental in 2017 of getting the chromium regulation stopped due to feasibility. And that's the biggest part. There's this big fight over safe water. We want to serve safe water, absolutely, but you also have to make it affordable. And the new study shows that households across California that have water districts are impacted by this constituent, their water bills can go up $70 per month. And that's just, it's not a reasonable number for so many of the people that, especially in disadvantaged communities. We had a customer in here just a few months ago that had to make a choice between paying her water bill and the food she was going to put on her table that month. And that is not what we want to hear. This is not fair. And that's really what when I gave that story in that office, you could see the impact. That we want to take care of our customers, serving safe water, but there has to be a balance there. And the one thing that we asked, and she laughed, but not at us, but we said, we have all these constituents coming down the pike. We've got chromium 6 coming down the pike. We have PFAS in the future. We have microplastics in the future. Now they're talking about manganese. All of these coming out. And are we going to build plants for every single one of these for treatments at 17 million and 25 million? That is going to be completely, no way. It's not affordable. And why can't we look at treatment that can handle all of these? Look at all the constituents in one fell swoop and say, okay, here's their problems. Here's how we can treat them. But these plants are not designed to easily switch over to, chromium 6 plant can't take care of microplastics. They're different types of treatments. And, the one treatment, remind me of the water machine. Reverse osmosis is a great one, but it has its own problems too, because it takes all the minerals out of the water. So you end up with bone issues as you drink that, as you get older. So you can't just strip the water free of all of its minerals. So it really just needs to be looked at holistically with all of the issues. And that's where she laughed and she said, well, that would be nice if California looked at everything that way, but they won't. They're going to pass the MCL and figure out how to pay for it later. She also recommended that we get with some our local representatives in the area, lobbyists in the area, and talk to them. So I have a couple of contacts that I'll be reaching out to see if maybe that's a possibility for us as well.
What is the Department of Drinking Water?
Department of Water Resources, DWR.
Well, DWR, Department of Water Resources.
Okay.
They're a division in State Water Resources Control. That doesn't talk to each other because they all require similar information, but formatted differently. We like them. We want to be their friends, but we just want them to talk. Yeah, that's it.
Are we done?
That is it.
Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? I'll second it.
Yeah, I would go.
Meeting is adjourned. Future director meetings are noted on the agenda.
Hi, Jeff.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you,
Hopefully it's
Jack.
not too cold out there right now.
It's not.
Oh, it's beautiful.